We're going to go ahead and get started. And good to see and hear everyone finally. We've had a great session so far talking about this new kind of worker and the importance of human capital. And I think everybody would agree we've got a big finish planned for the morning with a terrific group. And we've talked a little bit about you've heard third, fourth, fifth generations, and one of the great things about our industry is that generational continuity. And so with that in mind, and we've heard about the importance of a new kind of worker, the critical need to accelerate education and industry getting together. So with that thought in mind, we couldn't think of a better group to discuss that and a better moderator for the panel than Bree Ryder-Smith. So Bree, I'm going to bring you on and have you introduce yourself a little bit, and then get going with the panel. And as I assured you, and other than your time constraints, we're not going to clock watch this group. We're very interested in what you all have to say. So Bree, you're on, and welcome, and thanks everyone for doing this.
Great, thanks a lot, Dennis. I'm really excited to be here. It is an honor to moderate this panel of leaders in the produce industry, so thanks for that. I work at Driscoll's, so I lead our product leadership group for blackberries in the Americas. I'm Miles's oldest daughter, and in the theme of education, I went to Cal Poly and got my undergrad in ag business, a minor in equine science, and an MBA from Thunderbird, which is an Arizona-based school. In terms of logistics of this meeting, I'm going to do some brief intros, probably unnecessary for our panel members. And then John's going to introduce a really cool video that highlights some of the cool technology that Diarigo is using at commercial scale. And following that video, we're going to get right into the panel questions. At 11:30, which is the published kind of end time of this session, we're going to begin to take questions from the audience. So if you can, please submit questions via the chat. And at the end of our session at 11:30, we'll queue up those questions and have the panelists address them. We have commitment from the panelists to go until noon, so that's pretty exciting. As long as the questions keep coming, they'll keep going until that point. So with that, I'm going to start with an introduction to Tom Nunez. So he's the president of the Nunez Company. It's a multi-generational grower shipper based in Salinas. And it's also home of the Foxy brand, which some of you may recognize, probably most of you. So I asked the panelists a few questions to kind of kick us off, hoping to get something that you can't find on Google or in their official bios. Tom's been in produce for 44 years. He was born in it, so sorry about the giveaway on the age, Tom. And he's been full-time at Nunez Company for 22 years and 26 if you include working during college. He's been the president since fall of 2018. And I asked each panelist, like, what's your greatest accomplishment in your current role? And Tom's really proud of the fact that he's carrying on the family tradition of being dedicating his professional life to produce. And he's also really proud of the employee group at his company that's also doing the same. And I got the impression that that was also probably a multi-generational group. So very cool. He attended Cornell University, studied ag resources and managerial economics. And I asked what an example of a specific technology that is vital to his company that didn't exist 10 years ago was. And he said it was Zoom, and that he considers his own capabilities in using said technology deficient. But I think we can all relate to that. I'll go ahead and introduce my dad, Miles. So he's the chairman and CEO of Driscoll's. It's the world's largest fresh berry company. And he's been involved in the produce industry, always in berries, for 50 years. he's been growing berries for Driscoll's for 50 years, but he didn't join Driscoll's until about 17 years into his involvement in the farming, and he assumed the role of chairman at Driscoll's 33 years ago and CEO 20 years ago. His greatest accomplishment is a really meaningful mission, vision, and values that has stuck with the company. And a lot of people at our company say that, you know, it's one of the few companies where it's not just writing on the wall. So that's very cool to be the author of those. He went to Princeton and studied history. And an example of a vital technology that didn't exist 10 years ago, that actually I populated this for him because he's so dependent on these. They're his Apple AirPods. And I feel like he's pretty adequate at using them if he can find them. They're a safe distance from his car and they're fully charged. So I'd say adequate at best. We go to John D'Arrigo. So he's the president, chairman, and CEO of D'Arrigo, which is home of the Andy Boy brand. Again, a multi-generational grower and shipper in the Salinas area, but they do business kind of all over the place, similar to Nunez and Driscoll's. He's been involved in the produce industry 40 years at D'Arrigo, 29 years in his current role, which is a big role, 3 of them, president, CEO, and chairman. And his greatest accomplishment is building an incredibly talented team of professionals to run the company. I can say in the few conversations I've had with John, he's very, very engaged in talent development, which I think you'll find that evident across all 3 leaders during this panel. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Ag Economics and Business Management from the University of California at Davis. And he had a really good example of a specific technology that's really vital to their company. About 6 years ago, he initiated a mechanical engineering department at their company, and they've actually deployed an automated broccoli raw harvester. And what they said about that technology is they feel like they've got a pretty good grasp on it, but since technology is changing so fast, they don't think the grip will last too long, which is probably a good thing. So with that, John, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce your video.
Thanks, Bree. Can you hear me? I'll make sure this microphone works. Excellent, great. Well, good morning. Thanks. It's a pleasure to meet you, Bree, during this process. And it's great to see Tom and Miles, and it's a great panel. I'm looking forward to sharing the technology. We've been working very hard on it, as I've told you, really ramped up something in a half a decade that really surprised me with the talent that we brought in. You know, in the Salinas Valley, you know, we are really renowned, as we know, as the salad bowl of the world. And, you know, this revenue that we generate here, and we've got to protect it. There's just billions of food servings and billions of people. I think the world population is close to 8 billion now. So we've got a tremendous opportunity to feed the world if we can just keep viable. Technology is going to be a huge part of that for all of this. So we've got some massive technological changes that I'd like to show in a minute with these videos, just a teaser, if you will, of stuff that we are doing. We've got some incredible advancements and machinery and techniques. This technology that we're doing has been extremely useful with modernizing all our efforts across us, from California down into Mexico, down into Imperial Valley and Yuma. We've been able to really do a lot of stuff with water applications, herbicide, fertilizer, seed planting, harvesting. We're working on every process of our organization to really increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of it's all about ground utilization and yield. We've got to be really precise, especially with our cost inputs here. We found that it's really helping us do this. Obviously, the overall production and quality is paramount for being viable in this industry. So we've got a lot of teams testing this technology constantly, and we've really focused early on in the renewable energy. I'm really a passionate believer in renewable energy, in addition to the mechanization and automation that you guys will see shortly. It's going throughout our entire company, and we're looking for a lot of talent, and we can't find it. And that's why I want to do this panel. I'm not sure who's in the audience in Zoom land, but I hope there's a lot of students out there, because we're really trying to attract interest because it's not overalls and pitchforks anymore. It's pretty high tech. And so on renewable energy, as most of us know, it's 100% clean. We've invested millions and millions of dollars since 2016. I like the fact that our particular system, we've got no greenhouse gas emissions at all. And we've devoted right now 39 acres, and we're looking to do solar farms on every single ranch unit we have. So now we've got 18,000 solar panels currently in operation. We're producing 5.5 megawatts to offset all these ranch meters, and 87% of our electrical needs at this facility. I have a 50-acre facility here behind me with massive electrical needs. We're doing a lot of stuff for Driscoll, as you know, plus our own vacuum tubes. So it's a credible amount of energy that we use here, and 87% is all powered by the sun, all 152,000 square feet of that. We now employed in our fourth phase, we employed 2 Tesla batteries. And so now we can do storage, which helps us what's called peak shaving, which helps us stay off peak, saving us further millions of dollars. It's a 25-year system. It'll probably pay for itself probably in about 3.5 years, which it's already paid for at this point. And they tell me we're the largest customer-owned net energy metered solar power in Monterey County. And then moving on to the mechanization that you're going to see, we really started this because what we originally thought was, labor shortage, and it's always a labor shortage. But now we're finding that I've got to create labor because the person walking in the furrow, and I'm sure maybe Miles has seen this, maybe the strawberry operation, you, Bree, also, that we can't find people that want to actually walk through the fields, cut the lettuce. They want to ride on a platform, a mobile packing shed, if you will. So I call it labor creation. That's what we're doing here. And the shrinking workforce concerns me greatly. And what we're also finding as the technologies that we're employing is really helping the farm workers become actually very skilled workers. We're training them to run these robots and machines that we have. So the technology that's really improved their work environment has really attracted a lot of workers to our facility. So most of the machines we're focusing on right now are doing the hard labor of hand cutting and harvesting of the product. And then so we bring that up on a conveyor belt to be sorted and packed and quality control. Also, it allows us to build facilities out in the field that interest people, because we can protect them from the wind and the sun and the rain and all that sort of, it's more of a sheltered environment. So I really think the food production in this country is going to be greatly improved by the increase of technology. So the students out there, so Bree, do we have a lot of students out there? I hope we do. Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I think everyone's really excited to see your video.
Yeah, so we're going to do it right now. So we really hope the students really venture into the professional world of agriculture. There's so many career opportunities. We got mechanical engineering, we got every kind of legal field you want: soil, crop, water scientists, environmental, conservationists, fields of study, drone technologies, food scientists, finance and accounting, biochemists, information technology, computer programming, HR and payroll systems, sales, marketing, service center, vehicle fleet management. That's just to name a few. So there's really pretty much everything in here except for maybe rocket science. So anyway, I encourage you to consider, all you students, to really consider a career in agriculture in the Salinas Valley. We need you. Come and see me. We do internships. I'm sure these other companies do also. So this video was filmed throughout our operation. We're farming approximately a little over 40,000 crop acres in California, Arizona, and Mexico, about 2,000 employees. And so with that, I think we're just going to roll the video. Claudia, is that up to me right here?
Their team's going to do it.
thank you for letting me show that, Bree. I really appreciate it. Hope it really sparks some interest in our audience and the students. You can see we've come a long way in the last decade. We can actually now run a farm on a cell phone.
Yeah, that's a really great showcase of all the stuff you guys have done, John. So thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
Tom, you're going to be the first respondent to our first question, if you don't mind. I'd really love for you to share with the audience why you believe technology is important to agriculture that's largely been a pretty manual industry for a long time.
Yeah, and you guys can all hear me, right? I think we're okay. I think first and foremost, I think technology's always been important to the industry. You go back and you look at the generations before me. It's really been a situation in which the farmer, the producer's really been in the driver's seat. And you can go back to the vacuum cooling, to a lot of the things that John mentioned earlier before he played his video, the focus on the farming side and the efficiencies and the yield production, harvesting and the assistance and the aiding of the workers there, the cooling and the processing industry, and obviously the evolution of that in the late 80s and early 90s. And then really just on the sales and marketing side in the development of taste, texture, commodities, and whatnot. This industry has always had a technological focus. Today, it's probably even more pressing. And a lot of the reasons is because of the competition coming in from situations like controlled environmental agriculture. In addition to that, the regulatory environment. And so because of that, a lot of us on the producer side are starting to feel like we're riding shotgun, or maybe we're even sitting in the backseat as opposed to actually driving that tractor. So to the point, I think, of a lot of the individuals on this panel, agriculture really wants to get back in a collaboration method and get back in that driver's seat and try to make sure that the technologies and the advancements of our industry are done in a collaborative effort, and we can really move the industry forward in a lot of avenues, whether it's environmental stewardship, the safety of our products, the safety of our workers, the efficiencies of the operation, the taste and products that we offer the consumers. So there's no doubt that the focus is there, but it is probably at a heightened level today more than ever.
Thanks. Dad, do you want to add to anything that Tom said?
Yeah, I would. In fact, it's quite similar to the comments I was making in terms of the impact of technology on agriculture. It really, if you go as macro as possible, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers, and it was really a technology that allowed them to settle and start growing crops. So that was the first agricultural revolution, and the vast majority of people, really until just a century or two ago, maybe 2 or 3 centuries ago, the vast majority of people were involved, spent all their time just feeding themselves and society. It's places that's still true. In this country, we're at, I think the direct agricultural workforce is something like 2% of the population. And that change is all driven by technology, the capability of creating more food, more value, with less, humans involved. I mean, and probably all along that period, you've had, genetics. Of course, that's getting really advanced now. You've got the whole area of equipment, and then you've got the area of information and data analytics. And it is interesting as each of these areas interact and accelerate, where we go from when we're already down to 2% of the people engaged in direct agriculture. I don't know how low that number can go. And I actually think it'll go lower, but it maybe what we can do is really create more value in the system and less environmental impact. But all of that from moving to hunter-gatherers is all technology at play. And we're in a very accelerated period now.
John, would you like to add?
I would, the fact that we are growing the best medicine in the world, our fruits and vegetables, has certainly proven to be very important to world health. And we're in this global environment, and we're trying to remain relevant, viable, especially in the United States and certainly California. It's very, very difficult. Our cost pressures, environmental controls, regulatory environment, we do not have a lot of advantages other companies have. And so we've got to employ technology if we are going to stay on this world stage. And obviously, farm work, we've got to attract skilled workers. And this technology solves a lot of those issues. And as the population grows and people really rely more on plant protein, I think the technology is going to allow us to remain viable and relevant in this environment.
Thanks for that. Now, I'd love you guys to put yourself in the shoes of an actual ag worker, and kind of from their perspective, how are they impacted by technology? And also for the institutes that help prepare workers of the future, what do they need to be aware of, given that we really don't know what we don't know about what the future holds in terms of technological advancements? John, why don't you start with that?
Sure. So workers on all scales here, everywhere from the farm worker that comes as an immigrant from Mexico or Central America into our interns and people, we're creating an environment all along the whole path to increase their skills. And as I cannot find skilled workers, I'm finding a lot of these traditional farm workers really are embracing the technology, and we're taking the time to train them to run these machines, to operate these robots, and they really, really appreciate it. And so I've got generations here that love working here because we're constantly increasing their skills. And as we try to attract students, such as the audience, to get into ag for IT systems, robot development, drone development, it's just going to all work together as we build these machines to do this. So I think every facet has an opportunity to really grow and prosper in this ag technology environment.
Tom, do you have anything to add?
No, I think the biggest thing that, that I've witnessed over, just the history of the agriculture industry, it's an industry of talent, and people that are willing to really put the time, energy, and effort in, focus on the technological skills. There's a lot of expertise in our industry in so many different facets today that didn't exist years ago. And so because of that, there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of promise, there's a lot of opportunity. There always has been. We've seen companies come, we've seen companies go, we've seen companies prosper. But the one thing they've always done is they've evolved. And they've evolved with the times. And the talent in our industry has really driven that. And so for workers coming into ag, there's a lot of opportunity. And I think that's the biggest thing. How we did things yesterday isn't how we do them today. That's not how we're going to do them going forward. And it's a process in which we collaboratively work through, either as an industry or within our own company culture, to try to figure out how to create opportunity for each and every person that comes within our organization. And there's a skill set unique to different phases and different facets of each component that makes up agriculture, from the ground through the entire supply chain. And I really believe there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of hope. And I would encourage people to get into this industry because of the opportunity. And that's the great thing about this country. It's a land of opportunity, right? So, and this industry reflects that more than any industry I've seen.
Dad, what are your thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, berries are interesting in that I have real doubts that we're going to see. We don't have visible major advances in where most of the people are situated, which is harvesting the fruit. made considerable effort, and there's efforts going on around the world to solve those issues. But so far, it doesn't look that promising. And so what's kind of interesting for us is everything else around the harvest has to elevate in the technology. And basically systems that allow the harvest work to be more efficient and more comfortable, and at least stay reasonably attractive, and a good earning opportunity for the people doing it. So there's really a lot of organizing around that, whether it's the genetics that allow for improved harvest speeds, all kinds of systems that we can improve the quality of our farming so the output of the fruit is improved and easier with less culls. So there's a lot of processes around making all that work more effective, more efficient, and more comfortable. As mentioned, well, agriculture in California is interesting because we have tremendous environmental advantages of climate, and we have had plenty of water. That's a lot more of a problem today, and will continue to be. But we are challenged, and maybe in the long run, it'll be a good thing that the regulatory environment for labor is pretty difficult in California. And so we're forced to be at the forefront of solving issues around, making things better and more efficient for all the people that are in the field. So I guess that's the silver lining of an otherwise kind of difficult situation in California.
Given your response to that last question, I'd like you to kick us off for this next one, which is, what is the largest positive impact so far you have seen by technology innovation in agriculture? At least from the berry perspective, where we're still.
I would say for us, it's been in the genetics. So that's really the probably single greatest technology focus that we have at Driscoll's, and it's getting really interesting as we sort of dive into the genome without doing any modification, just learning what's in there. Massive data management sets required, and some really interesting skill sets. That would be I would say would be the biggest piece. And we're really in early stages of the next transition of genetic velocity in the business.
John, what about you?
Well, for us, one of the biggest technological impacts we've seen, we're really using a lot of global positioning satellite systems. We're helping us navigate, improve ground utilization. I mentioned that earlier about yields, all about yield and ground utilization. So these GPS systems that we've been employing really help us with uniformity, consistency, quality, the accuracy of the GPS systems really help us execute precision farming. In California, you've got to be so precise here because our cost pressures are immense. And so year after year, soil sampling, weed location, planting, maps, harvesting, environmental controls, crop scouting, machine relocation, all these things really we've been employing through the GPS system. So we've found that that's one of the biggest things for us so far.
Great. And Tom, what about you?
Yeah, I tend to agree with both John and Miles and a lot of what they just said. I think to add to that is, consumer consumption, the taste, the quality, the ability to give the consumer choices. We've been able to increase consumption through multiple meals during the day. And so ultimately that's all come through technologies, come through the development of different varietals that can ship better, that taste better. And so we've been able to give the consumer a lot more choices. So consequently, we've been able to get agricultural products into the marketplace because of the advancements that we've had through the different aspects that both Miles and John stated, and the development of different varieties that have taste and texture that the consumers enjoy.
That's a great point. And I'll add something really exciting for us is this shift to not necessarily online shopping, but having a line of sight into what drives consumers to buy the things they do. I think that'll couple really nicely with kind of these advanced genetics efforts, hopefully going forward. So it's a little bit more of a closed loop. So we're working on the right things that consumers, the people who ultimately pay, actually want. Tom, what do you think the most urgent problem in agriculture is that can be solved with technology?
Wow, I mean, I think technology is touching so many different sides. We talked a little bit about what's going on just on the farm side, the environmental side, all the different aspects that are going on there. A lot of it ties to the regulatory environment. We touched upon the harvest and trying to make things more efficient, jobs that could advance and help people become more efficient. We talked a little bit about the consumption side, a little bit of even about the safety side of our product. I think is very, very important to make sure that we maintain not just quality and consistency in the products we produce, but confidence within them as well.
John, what about you? You've been doing some heavy recruiting in this meeting. What do you want people to help you figure out?
Well, the most urgent problem, I keep on going back to our ever shrinking and disappearing labor supply. I fight it every single day. We're 30% short every single day. So I see, as you asked the question, what can be solved with these urgent problems with technology? I think this automation, this mechanization, the better jobs, the training, the opportunities, improving production, attracting people that want to learn new skills. I think technology can really solve a lot of these problems.
Dad, you kind of said everything outside of the harvest really needs to be elevated in priorities. So I'm going to jump to the next question. And John, I'd like you to take this one. Do you believe the pace of innovation in agriculture is fast or slow?
I think it depends on the company and the resources you're putting towards it. We've got the entire spectrum here in this valley. I've seen people such as myself, we're pounding technology. We're out there recruiting and hiring. We've got a PhD doctor working, running our mechanical engineering now. I've worked with Dr. Kitts there at Santa Clara. I've gone to all the universities. I think depends on who you talk to. Some people are trying to do it very fast. Some people aren't doing anything. And so to me, if you're not really pushing that envelope as hard as you can, I think you're going to become a dinosaur, in my opinion. And so as long as I can keep on affording this technology and this R&D, I'm going to keep on doing it as fast as I possibly can. So I don't know if it really answered your question, but it really depends on who you are and what your commitment is.
Any other thoughts on this, Tom? I mean, I guess really one of the issues with the speed of innovation is one, how much your company is willing to spend, but do you feel like there's an industry out there that's kind of ready to step up and support your efforts? Or is it like, if you don't do it yourself, it's just not going to happen?
I think it's a mix. I think there's definitely collaboration that takes place within the industry. I think, and then as companies individually are going to work on things that are most important to their product mix. But I think ultimately with what's going on the regulatory environment, in particular in California, I think we need to move at as fast of a clip as we can. Obviously, there's fiscal restraints that the industry has, so there's responsible spending. But with what we're up against, we got to continue to push as an industry to make some of these advances so we can continue to compete here locally. So there's no doubt, I would think we would all like to see the technological advances progress at a faster clip. It's just a matter of the economics in terms of how fast we can really move.
Dad, I'd like you to answer from your perspective, are the people who use the technology going to be able to keep up with it if it advances at a faster rate than it's been advancing in agriculture?
Well, we don't have any choice. And I think, there's excitement around it. I see young people coming in, better prepared than maybe a couple of us Neanderthals. So, we don't have any choice. I mean, but we need people, we need people to be interested and excited. I have to say, we have an operation in China, and they've done a good job of preparing the technology learnings among the younger people we've hired, and it's sort of given me a view that we better not take it for granted. And so, I mean, this kind of session's important. So yeah, I mean, we've either got to get the people need to come trained, or we have to train them, as John's saying. We don't have any choice. And I actually would add one thing on one of the latter questions. We have resource issues that are really significant: people, water, carbon footprint. But I want to tie it, and this inspires me and hopefully inspires young people, because there's a lot of interest in the food system. Sometimes more interested in food than agriculture, but I see it. There's an opportunity for us in business to really recognize the energy that's focused on food. And one thing, John mentioned the healthiness of fresh foods. We're all fresh food people here on this panel. If you live in coastal California, it's about fresh food. When I got out of college, 18% of income was spent on food and 9% on healthcare. Those numbers are roughly reversed. And what we can and need to do is start earning some of that back. And so, Bree, actually, you've worked on some things with measurement systems that we can use to create better rewards for growers. So what they're really after is in our terminology, delighting consumers, because I think we can both make a healthier world and get people much more ready and willing to eat fresh foods if we improve the appeal of what we produce. And that's one of the most exciting elements of technology is using that to get us past just what's my yield to how good is what I produce. And that should attract a lot of people. It's a fun thing.
Yeah. And do you anticipate that the actual composition of the field level workforce will change, or will it just be the skill set they either come with or the companies provide their workers to be able to do the job? Do you see a really big shift in that? I know you'd like to see some younger people working in agriculture, but beyond that?
I think there's a lot of upward mobility available, and more so now because the proportionality of these jobs is changing. In terms of the ability to go from like the most basic field work into supporting that, and the people that work in that do have insights. I mean, it's still a people business for all the technology involved, but in our case, we do need a lot of people that are willing to do that hard work of like picking berries. And we can do things that make it easier for them. But it's a dilemma. I actually wished I could give a more clear
John, what
answer
about
instead of beating around the bush.
John, what about you? Are you feeling like the composition's going to shift, or just the skill sets required to do the work?
Well, we've got to see a shift. And I've been working with UC Davis, Fresno, I've talked to Santa Clara, Cal Poly. I'm on a U of A tech board down in Arizona. I'm trying to get the curriculum developed from their point of view into ag type technologies and sectors, and working from that and getting young people involved, interested in farming, interested in our food supply. And then people that are here come from all levels of backgrounds, of no education whatsoever to really smart doctors. And the ones at the low end of the spectrum, we're investing in them. We're training them on site. And you'd be surprised how many really smart people are coming from south of the border. They just need an opportunity. So we're trying to hit all spectrums and bring everybody up, no matter where they are and where they're from. And the future would be on the real high end to get mechanical engineers, doctors, scientists, all this sort of thing, biochemists. Food safety is real important, to mesh with the people that are already here working in production agriculture, and then bringing those skills all the way down to folks that just never had that opportunity and bringing them up. So we've seen that entire shift in our company because we're pretty much 100% vertically integrated here. That's one of the advantages that we have.
Great. Tom, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think as technology evolves, I think you're going to need different levels of expertise and different levels of skill set. I think your dad mentioned it earlier. I think trying to make sure we make sure we instill the excitement of our industry, and this industry, like John mentioned too, it's the world's best medicine. It is something that we take from Mother Earth. It's a really beautiful industry in a lot of ways when you're really into it. And there's a lot of opportunity in just trying to make sure we attract and excite people to get into this industry, because there's a place for all different types of skill sets. I do think with technological advances, there'll be more opportunity for people at a higher skill set level. But the excitement of the industry is really important. Getting people that are excited to get involved. A lot of family businesses, a lot of family companies, farming families, all different facilities, and so there's a lot of excitement. It's not one big huge corporation. There's a people side of our business that's very unique. So the excitement is really important in trying to get that messaging out so we can attract people to hit all these different levels.
Okay, and then our final panel question before we go into audience questions. Tom, I'd like you to take it first. I'd really like you to share with us, what area within your company do you see the biggest gap between the need and the available workforce, and maybe frame this in a way that the educators that are on this call can have a takeaway from it. And then also, if it's a particular technology, there's a lot of startups on here I'm seeing from the chat, so could also be a call to action for them as well.
Yeah, so where we sit today, and you talk about just people in general, where the industry is short and where the opportunity sits, it's on the harvest side. John mentioned their situation there. It's not unique. I mean, it's not unique. The industry in every facet is facing a shortage out on the farm, and in particular on the harvest side. So the technological advances there are some of the greatest opportunities that we see today. So specifically, I think that's where a lot of effort and time and energy is being spent collaboratively within the industry, and then also within each individual organization.
Dad, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'd agree that the biggest shortage is is in the actual harvest area. But in terms of some of the more technologically focused areas, I would say for us, probably right now and for the next at least 5 years, it will be on propagation capabilities. So we're well, propagation capabilities and substrate farming uh, are really critical features in terms of getting a smoother outflow of product, but really to improve the harvest condition quality of the fruit at the same time. And so, but we really need to understand the plants better than we have. Like through my career was, if you spent a lot of time in the field, you watched and you made improvements. We did a little bit of formal testing, but you still need to be out there a lot, but then you have to turn it into a more precise set of actions. If you're, say, irrigating a substrate system, or you're creating plants ready to produce in a propagation facility, and then you're moving them to a production site for a very brief period of time where they absolutely have to perform to spec, or you poured a fortune into something that didn't really work. So if you do it right, it's great. If you do it poorly, you spend a lot of money. And so we don't have people that are good enough at that right now. And that's a really interesting area that has plenty of opportunity.
Great. John, why don't you bring us home so we can open this up for questions?
Sure. Looking at it from the big picture, obviously I agree with Miles and Tom, but I really was focusing on all areas because there's so much opportunity. You can see what I've done in harvesting. That is a big problem with that person disappearing. I'm going to build a fleet of robots. You saw some of our robots out there right now. We've got a whole nother generation coming along. So we're going to solve that harvesting problem, get those plants up on a platform to deal with. But then we haven't really talked about the disease problems that we have in plants, and they're taking over this last year with the INVS, that disease.
NSV.
NSV, thank you, Tom. And so Miles touched on the propagation, seed varieties, resistance, there's plant genetics, there's entire fields there that people could get into that could really improve upon that. Look at the energy consumption. I'm focusing on the energy consumption, and I'm going to solve that and get totally renewable. Water science and water use. We're employing over 17,000 acres of drip here. Saves a ton of water. And then people don't realize that's 25% less inputs like fertilizer. People don't realize the gases that fertilizer give off, and that really reduces those. So all these sciences have huge opportunities in every one of these fields in agriculture. So I invite the professors, the students, all to come on over, and we'll show you and get you interested. Back to you, Bree.
Great, thanks. Just looking for the mute button. Well, you guys, this has been really interesting. Actually, I went 12 minutes over because I wanted to get the rest of my questions in. We have a bunch of questions. So I think what I'll do is, based on the conversation we've had so far, kind of direct them to each of you so we can get through as many as we can in the next 18 minutes. So here we go. Dad, this one's for you. It's spring 2030. Describe the day in the life of harvesting.
Oh, wow, that's a tough question.
Profit.
I think in a raspberry field, it would you're going to be in a semi-protected environment. We're already there right now, actually, but you'll only be picking peak crops. I think we'll still be working overtime. I don't think we're going to solve that. And if we don't, we need to half solve it. If we don't half solve it, there will be nobody picking raspberries in California. We're certainly, and we've moved to this, the flow of information as you come off the field will be real time to both the warehouses and sales offices. So we adjust much more rapidly to any deviation against expectation. And one of the things you'll have in your day as you come to work, probably once a week, you will actually get a report of what consumers said about the fruit you picked? How was their response? Did they like them? Did that drive repeat purchase? Or were they troubled because the fruit was crumbly or green? And I say that across all the crops. So I'll let it go with that.
Great. Okay, John, I'd like you to take this next one. What are the biggest challenges that the automated solutions need to overcome to better serve growers?
Say that again. I gotta think about this question.
Yes. So what are the biggest challenges that some of the automated solutions you actually showcased? What do they need to overcome to better serve growers? You know, like business model comes to mind, costs, things of that. You know, do you need mechanical engineers to be able to do these?
Right now, I'm building these robots and we're doing it in-house because I cannot find anybody to help me. And so we're developing that all ourselves. And so if we can spur innovation in our colleges and universities to really work on developing these mechanical engineers and these technologies that really have very practical applications. That's what I think we really need to focus on, is the skilled, educated labor set. Because I'm sure Miles and Tom are doing this too. I'm looking globally for tech, and a lot of it here in the United States.
Okay, great. Tom, this one is for you. What crop protection problems in Salinas Valley could be addressed with new technologies?
You know, I'm going to go back to how John finished up a couple questions before. You know, it all starts with the crop. The better crop we have, the greater uniformity, the less disease, all those different attributes will allow technology to work better. So there's no doubt that technology needs to evolve and investments need to be made into the foundation that starts all these things. So it starts with the ground. It starts with the soil and the condition of it and the drainage of it and the bed prep and all the efficiencies that go into establishing that seedling. So there's no doubt that all of these things they're built upon that down the supply chain. So those focuses are big. The uniformity of the different crops, the timing of the years, how they weather different pests or impacts of the environment. That's something that agriculture's worked on for generations, but more and more advancement in that will help a lot of the problems from the harvest on. And so there's no doubt that focus is very, very important to allow some of these other technologies to take hold.
Okay, great. And then this is kind of a follow-up question for all three of you. What is the best way to engage on these problems for newbies in the industry, you know, who don't really have a network or aren't, you know, directly involved with a specific company? Tom, you want to take a shot at that and then we'll go back?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a tremendous platform right here in the Salinas Valley that's tied with the Western Growers Innovation Center. There's tremendous access from that point that team can help make introductions and try to find a particular growers, shippers, commodity specific people that they could marry up. So that's a really, really good start. In addition to that, you can reach out directly to the shippers right here locally in the community. You know, it's not difficult to do that. But I think a really good option is the Innovation Center to start with, and then obviously, you know, listen to John. He'll take your call, no doubt. You can call us, but no, there's definitely every company in this industry is looking at advancement. I think I mentioned before, in order to stay in this business, you have to stay relevant and you have to continue to progress and grow. You got to get up every day, you got to put your boots on, they got to get dirty. And so there's no doubt that the companies that are based in this valley in particular and throughout our industry are definitely willing to look at specific things that make sense for them. Western Growers Innovation Center maybe give you a broader group to look at.
Great. I'm really glad that you mentioned, reaching out directly to the companies, because a lot of the questions in the chat have been like HR contacts, lists of internships. So for everyone listening, we'll make sure that we get links to the websites where internships are listed and HR contacts for each company, and we'll post it somewhere. I'll work on that following this panel. John, any other ideas on ways for newbies to engage with the produce industry on these problems?
That's a real good question. I think they've got to be aggressively reaching out directly to these companies. Some of the best people I have actually were interns a long, long time ago, and they had enough sense to actually reach out to me and people I work for, get interested in these various fields. And some of them didn't even come from ag backgrounds, but that kind of personality, I think they need to develop the curiosity of this industry and reach out to companies. I think we're all looking for talent. I think all of us have intern programs, and I've lost count of how many interns have actually come back here and now they're full-time employees running the company. So that's what I would do, is just be aggressively reaching out and don't give up.
Dad, what about you? Any ideas?
Well, I agree on the intern programs, and we've had the same experience. And I, encourage people to work hard and, stand out a little bit. Women should feel equally welcome in this industry. I think all of us are, it's a very, mixed group. And so that is, gender is not an issue at all. One thing we haven't quite put together, but I think we will. I didn't get quite enough cooperation. I really want to also open up opportunities for young people, maybe later in high school, certainly college age, to actually work in harvest. And, Tom mentioned he worked through college. I bet he didn't have a fancy job. And same with John, same with me. And you learn a lot out there. So we're failing to get that put together, but we will in the next year or two. And I would encourage people never disdain that work on the farm, because you want to learn a lot and you prove yourself a lot. And one of the really great things about this business is you work really hard and you work long days, and it's really fun. That I view as one of the appealing elements of being in agriculture.
That's yeah, those are all good points you guys have made. I had to harvest blueberries in Chile for like 3 or 4 months when I first moved down there, and I was faster than my husband every single day, which was a highlight. But I totally agree with you. So when I moved down there, my dad was like, "You gotta start as a harvester," and I was like, "Oh my God, why?" And I'm so glad I did, because everything after that, it was just helps understand, what every kind of critical aspect of the value chain, what it's like. And it really does start with the harvesters. There's a YouTube question, or someone who was on YouTube watching this asked, how does the ability to speak English and Spanish affect upward mobility for ag workers? I can say personally, one of the requirements of our family to work in our company is that we have to speak a second language. So I speak Spanish. On the Spanish speaking side, an ability to speak English is important, the higher up you get. I don't know if any of the panelists disagree with that or want to add anything, or if we move on to the next question.
I think that is a great question. We've kind of skipped over the whole language barrier thing. And for here, I find those that are really trying both Spanish to English, English to Spanish, because I spent a decade trying to learn Spanish and I'm still working on it. And I use it every single day because I'm glad that Miles brought that up. From 1970, 1980, I cut lettuce, loaded celery, bunched onions every summer. I rode the bus as a farm worker. That's what I did for 10 years. And that's kind of why I'm at today. And we kind of overlooked that. So thanks for bringing that up, Miles. But the language really helps upward mobility when I've got really smart people coming out of Mexico and Central America, and they take the time to learn English. And it's so much easier for me to promote those kind of people because the language barrier really helps me, just be more productive and cross my entire spectrum of communicating with many people that only speak Spanish, and they can make that bridge to into upper management. And that's kind of what's happened here. I've had so many people here that came as just green card immigrants that now are running the company because they took the initiative to get smart, get educated, learn English, and man, you're hired. Great question.
There's a pretty interesting question in the chat. Can the panel members speak to efforts to engaging Silicon Valley in tech solutions? And are they an important group to engage in our industry? Tom, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'm just going to comment on John's comment. That knife cuts both ways. So the upward mobility, we have a lot of English speaking people, they don't speak Spanish. And it's such a hands-on business that to be able to speak to anybody and discuss the operational side of the business and the vision of what we're trying to do, the ability to speak both English and Spanish on a work-related side. And we don't have to talk about anything else, but just to be able to have a limited skill set in both, it's really important. But moving on, absolutely. I think the Silicon Valley collaboration with agriculture has been important. I think the biggest hurdles over that is understanding what Silicon Valley can bring and what ag needs, and trying to connect those dots together to make sure that we can move in the direction that's most efficient for the progression of agriculture. And that is something I know WGA is working very, very hard on to try to figure out exactly what those milestones look like, what the needs are, and then based off of that, try to find the necessary technology that can help advance our industry.
John, what's your feeling on the engagement with Silicon Valley?
I'm still trying to figure that one out. That goes back to these ag things we did years ago with the Silicon Valley group. And so for me, it's been very limited. I'm really reaching out into other countries, other states. I do use Silicon Valley. I've got a whole department. We do a lot of custom programming here, pretty much all custom programming on the computer side. I'm still looking for getting increasing value out of Silicon Valley. So for me, it's kind of limited, and maybe that's my fault. Maybe they're not selling themselves they're not walking in the door and convincing them. So I'm kind of on the fence on that.
Dad, what about you?
I'll admit right here, just the term Silicon Valley annoys me some because I was born in Santa Clara Valley and I was one of the great agricultural areas in the world. But it's been interesting because it's clear these multi-trillion-dollar or trillion-dollar plus companies, in order to, to continue to grow and justify their valuations, they have to take on big areas that appear to be inefficient. And so obviously transportation is one, but agriculture and the food system is another. I think that they've, I think there's a little you know, some arrogance, some misunderstanding. We've worked some with a couple of the companies, and I do see it starting to produce some results, particularly in the area of very, very large data sets, which is, you know, out of my realm of expertise for sure. But there's a significant, it's going to be, there will be some very significant elements that play into the business. I don't think they're going to take it over like they have a few other things. Well, I think we're going to hang on to our business, but there'll be things that they add, definitely.
Okay, well, we're right at noon. This has been a super entertaining panel, so thanks to all three of you for participating and giving such thoughtful and candid responses. So Dennis, I guess I'll turn it over to you after saying that I hope everyone on this call can appreciate how committed agriculture is to providing very interesting and progressive work opportunities to, you know, young people, people who have less education, more education. It's really an exciting time to be in agriculture.
Well, it certainly is, and job well done. And you know, Miles used the phrase to continually delight consumers, and I think you all delighted the audience. I'll warn you ahead of time. You're going to be recorded and edited for a lot of strategic and important things that the people need to hear, which is exactly what we wanted and we hoped would happen. So thanks for that.